welcome to episode 10 of our podcast. I'm Anna. In this episode, me and Wendy are joined by our two guests, Banana and Cindy. We will be talking about Skinner and Bandura's ideas in behaviorism and exploring how these theories influence our behaviors in real classrooms based on our own experience. Welcome, guys. Could you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Banana.
I'm Cindy. We are the students from BSc Education in University of Manchester.
Today, we will explore how Skinner's operant conditioning and Bandura's social cognitive theory work together to shape students' behavior, motivation, and learning. We will also talk about practical classroom strategies like reinforcement system, modeling, peer learning, and how teacher behavior influences students' self-efficacy.
Before we start, let's think back to your childhood. Did you ever rush to finish work just to get a sticker or copy something a friend did because it looked cool? Well, those moments reflect two huge learning theories, Skinner's behaviorism and Bandura's social cognitive theory. And today, we're going to break them down and reflect on how they have shaped our learning inside and beyond classrooms. So let's start with Skinner. His theory really explains why students do homework or follow classroom rules. Banana, could you start with Skinner's main ideas?
Sure, Anna. Skinner argued that learning happens through reinforcement, rewards, and punishments.
And I remember his black box idea. Basically, he believes that we can't directly see what's happening inside a person's mind. So instead of guessing, we should focus on the behaviors we can observe.
Exactly. So Skinner's theory sort of mention is that behavior is equals to stimulus, to response, and then consequence. Also, Skinner believed learning happens through operant conditioning, meaning behavior is strengthened by its consequences. Rewards and the removal of something unpleasant both increase behavior.
I think so. I remember when I was in primary school, teachers often give red stars to the students handling assignments on time. At that time, I'm really looking forward to getting that red star and receiving the teacher's encouragement. So I always finish my homework ahead of time. Looking back, it's a very clear example of Skinner's positive reinforcement. The reward shaped my behavior and helped me develop the habit of completing homework efficiently.
That's a perfect example of Skinner's positive reinforcement. The red star acted as a reward, and because the reward was immediate and meaningful for you, it strengthened your behavior. What's interesting is that we can literally see how a simple reinforcement schedule shaped your habit of finishing homework early.
And actually, Skinner also talked about negative reinforcement, which is often misunderstood. Once my teacher tells us in class, if all of you finish your homework and hand it in by Friday, then I will cancel the pop quiz that was scheduled for Friday afternoon. Before the pop quiz is scheduled for Friday, many students will worry about it. And in this case, students will complete and turn in their homework on time. However, after the teacher cancels the pop quiz, the aversive stimulus has been removed. So, in future weeks, students are more likely to complete their homework on time, to avoid having the pop quiz. To explain this situation, cancellation of the quiz is a removal of something unpleasant functions, which is a negative reinforcer as well. This behavior increases the probability that students will do the homework promptly in order to avoid the undesirable quiz. So the motivation was totally different.
Pop quiz sounds really horrible, but I've always felt that Skinner's ideas don't explain the deeper why. Why do some students stay motivated while others don't? Why does the same reward lose power over time? He doesn't answer these questions, and that's exactly where Bandura steps in. By showing how cognition, self-efficacy, and observation shape learning.
That's definitely true. Skinner saw learners as reacting to the environment, but Bandura believed learners are active agents who think, interpret, and choose. The idea forms the foundation of his social cognitive theory. Cindy, could you help us explain that?
Of course, Bandura agrees that reinforcement matters, but he said this isn't the whole story. He argues that learners are not passive, they pay attention, interpret, remember, and evaluate what they see. In the bubble doll experiment, the children weren't just reacting automatically, they watched the model, encoded the behavior in memory, and they chose whether to reproduce it based on how rewarding it looked. That's the cognitive layer.
Right, and something that Bandura really emphasized in his social cognitive theory is that learning isn't just copying someone, it goes through four cognitive steps. The first one is attention, which means the focusing what the model is doing, which is followed by the retention. It's like remembering what has been observed from others. And next is reproduction. It's the performing the behavior you haven't been observed and retained in your memory. And the last one is the motivation. It's like being willing to copy someone's behavior. And honestly, the first three aren't the hard part. The real challenge is the last step, motivation. That's the part that determines whether learning actually happens.
Exactly. That really reminds me of my own experience when I was young. At that time, I was in elementary school. I struggled with my math, and my mom told me, if you get all your homework correct, I'll take you to the playground this weekend. And at first, I worked really hard just for the reward, and it really reinforced my behavior. I checked everything more carefully and slowly formed a little bit habit. And slowly, but after a while, I realized I didn't actually need the playground trip anymore. Solving a difficult problem and getting it right started to feel rewarding on its own. So it shows exactly what Bandura meant. The reinforcement might get you started, but whether you continue depends your thinking, your motivation, and how meaningful the task feels to you.
I love this example, as it captured the transition Bandura talked about from behavior shaped by reinforcement to behavior driven by your own belief and motivation. And Bandura would say that is what truly sustains learning in the long run. Maybe the next thing we can explore something about his ideas about modeling. So, how does modeling or seeing others succeed influence our inner motivation?
That's a good question. Modeling has a real strong effect. For example, when I was a kid, I always watched a classmate who was amazing at math. Seeing her solve problems so calmly made me think, okay, if she can do it, maybe I can at least try. And that try moment is exactly what Bandura cared about. It's a boost in self-efficacy. So modeling works because it changes what you believe about yourself, not just what you copy.
Amazing. I agree with you, Wendy. I remember when I was a child, my main role model was my old sibling. Every evening after dinner, they would sit at the desk and quietly do their homework. No one was standing there with rewards or punishments. I simply noticed their routine, admired them, and thought, wow, this is what a good student does. I paid attention, I remembered the pattern, and eventually I started copying it, sitting down at the same time with my own books.
Wow, both of you have shared inspiring examples literally. They show what Bandura kept emphasizing. Modeling isn't just copying, it shapes how we see ourselves. And what stands out to me is that neither of your examples involve rewards. You are motivated internally because you evaluate the behavior you observed. Since we have already talking about modeling, it's a great moment to bring Bandura's social cognitive theory back in classrooms. You know, teachers are also powerful models in our real life. So, how do you guys think teachers' behaviors influence students' self efficacy?
Well, I think teachers' behaviors will play a huge role. When a teacher stays calm and explains things clearly and shows confidence in the student, it will directly boost the student's belief that they can do it too. I remember one teacher who always said, "Take your time, you are capable." Every time she said it, my anxiety level went down immediately and my confidence went up. Bandura would call this verbal persuasion one of the key sources of self efficacy.
I completely agree. I also have the feeling when students see a teacher approach mistakes positively, as Banana mentioned, like saying, "Let's work through this together," students learn that struggling is normal. The teacher is modeling as a healthy mindset about learning, and the students internalize that. So the student's self-efficacy grows because the model shows them how to think, not just what to do.
Since we are talking about Bandura, I think it's also important to mention that some of his early research, especially the bubble door study, which has been criticized, one common criticism of Bandura's bubble door study is that the setting was very artificial. A clown door is meant to be hit, so some children might have seen it as a game rather than real aggression. And because it was done in a specific cultural context, we should be careful about generalizing the results to all society. But I think Bandura's core idea still holds today that children learn through observing others. What's changed is the environment. Now they also have YouTubers, influencers, gamers, and online characters as models. So the challenge today is understanding how learning works in digital spaces, where likes, comments, and followers act as new kinds of vigorous reinforcement.
I think that's a really important point, Cindy. Bendra's theory still makes sense, but the context of modeling has changed dramatically. Kids today aren't just watching parents and teachers, they're watching hundreds of models every day online. So maybe what we need to think about now is how do we help students develop the ability to evaluate the models they follow? Not just copying everything they have seen, but choosing which behaviors are worth imitating.
Exactly, and that's where teachers come in. In such a crowded modeling environment, teachers became an important anchor. Students watch how teachers respond to mistakes, how they handle stress, how they treat people, and so on. All these behaviors quietly build students' self efficacy and will shape their learning values as well. So, even if online models are everywhere, the quality of the teacher student modeling relationship is still very powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And it also shows why Bandura talk about thoughtful, intentional modeling. Teachers cannot control everything students see online, but they can model critical thinking, showing students how to question sources, how to recognize unhealthy behavior, and how to choose better role models. That's still very much in line with social cognitive theory.
Well done, guys. Before we warm up, I'd love to hear a short reflection from each of you. Maybe just a quick takeaway. What today's series mean to you, and what message you hope educator can take from our discussion.
Well, for me, I think today's discussion really shows something simple but powerful. Skinner helps us understand how learning starts through the reinforcement, routine, and clear structure. But Bandura helps us understand how learning actually lasts, maybe through modeling, the self efficacy, and the belief that I can do this. In real classrooms, both matter. The students need a supportive environment, but they also need people who show them that's what's possible. And when those two things work together, that's when real meaningful learning happens.
Yeah, from Skinner, I have learned that consequences really do shape what we do, But Bandura reminds me that we also learn quietly by watching others. Put them together, the series make me realize that every individual is both a manager of behavior and a role model, and that makes me think more carefully about the example I set each day.
Good job, guys. The end has come again to this wonderful time. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and thanks to our listeners for tuning. We'll see you in the next episode.